I had a moment, this last year, especially when I was doing some work with a math company. There was a period of time where I was partnered up with a pretty brilliant math teacher, you know, and there was a lot of like teaching and pedagogy stuff that was going on. And it really was like I felt like every time that I was showing up, and believe me, it was likable guy and good conversation, all this stuff. But it felt like every time I was having meetings with him, I felt like I was in a third year college class, you know,
Hmm.
and I really kind of had to go. I felt like I was in a third year college class, and I was in over my head, you know, and just really kind of having to go, sorry, can you unpack this for me? And it felt, was feeling a little bit like feeling that small because I was like having to unpack the stuff, but he was very kind and gracious through it. But the other thing through that was me kind of going, all right, Lord, I'm paired up with this person at this time for a reason, and I don't know what this is, and I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be learning. And I don't, and Doug, I don't know what the ultimate thing is for you in this. I don't know if it's you begin being given the opportunity to flex boundaries or saying certain no's in difficult situations or not saying yes to everything, or exactly like, you know what, I can just get through let me just get through this next 15 minutes or this next half hour in this situation, and just let me just get through what that next 15 minutes is and just be in this moment, you know. How's your sleep?
It's normally spot on good. I've been waking up though with dreams and very vivid, sorry, vivid dreams. Like the one 2 nights ago that got me up at like 3 a.m. was very much, I mean, it was so like I hadn't even been watching sci-fi, but I was on a spaceship somewhere and there were these people who weren't doing what they needed to be doing, and I had to deal with them harshly. And I was able to touch them, grab them by the shirt, push them, change their molecular structure, push them out into space with my hand and let go and watch them die. And it was like not just once, but several times. And then at one point in time, I was able to step out of the spaceship and extend an air bubble around me and just watch space for a few minutes
Hmm.
as their bodies floating off in the distance. And it's
Were
just
they were they a danger in this situation? Were these people a danger,
no,
or
that's
were you the bad guy in this?
I think I was the bad guy in this. I don't know what they did wrong. I just knew something was not making me happy. And I just it's like push them out the airlock, but I pushed them through the hull of the ship to the outside and let them go. And it's like that was traumatizing. I'm like, I woke up, I'm like, all right, God, where did this come from? What's going on?
Wow. Wait, how long did you stay up after that?
About another half hour.
Yeah.
It's like I had
Yeah.
to get myself in a position where I could fall asleep again.
Yeah. You're in this, and I know, you're balancing work, you're balancing other things. I mean, obviously, your body's going through a strain right now.
Yeah.
Not only fighting the cancer, but also you got the chemo that's going through too. And, you know, and I know that we had a situation a few weeks ago where, again, you got knocked out and just need to take a nap. And it's like, are you a napper at much? Do you get the opportunity
Oh,
to nap?
I will like go grab lunch and then lay down on the couch and nap for like half an hour. I have to set
Yeah.
an alarm because I can sleep right through.
Yeah. Right. Right. It's a
But
good
yeah,
thing. It's
I like
sort of
naps.
the thing that goes through my mind is like when I think about like Olympian athletes and stuff that are training or doing all that, you know, those Olympian athletes are also grabbing usually anywhere between 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night, right? Because they're also burning a ton of calories and everything. Same thing happens with world-class musicians. When you've got like a featured violinist, soloists, or whatever, like they did a study on their sleep stuff. Yes, they're practicing. When they're doing their practice, they're doing massive concentration, but then they find out these world-class, soloists they usually have to log about 9 to 10 hours of sleep a night to make sure that their body is ready to go back and do it. And you're in the middle of this too, with work, battling cancer, and chemo that's going through you, and dietary changes, and
Yeah,
a lot. That's a lot.
it's a lot. I need to give myself grace more.
Yeah. Well, I think that that's the hard thing, right? When you're in a season like this, because again, it's the stuff that you're used to doing regularly, where you just kind of go, oh no, my normal situation is I go and I get, and I do, and I'm a go-getter, or I'm working on stuff. And it's ignoring the fact like going, yeah, no, you're actually going through a crisis.
Yeah.
You're going through a physical crisis. And that is also, unfortunately it's a hidden crisis, right? So it should be just like, hey, I should be, I don't get it. It's like kind of going, no, man, like if you could get if you could see what's going on, right? It's like the same thing that we have happening around us with angels and demons, right? The battle
Yeah.
that's happening that we are so completely unaware of. And yet if our, if this veil was dropped for a second, what we would be like, whew, right?
Yeah. And I need to not worry about shielding so many people about what I'm going through. Because I'm always protecting everyone else, like, oh yeah, I'm fine, I'm doing great. Even when I'm not bad, but I'm not great. And I need to be more vocal about when I need to stop and rest, or take a break, or you're giving me too much stuff to deal with at work, or whatever it happens to be.
And just a reminder on these calls that you have that ability to be able to do that, to just go, I can't do it tonight.
Oh, I slept through one of them a couple weeks ago.
That's fine. Yeah. That doesn't matter. Can I ask you something? What do you think the halt is with that, of being able of there's obviously something that's happening, and again, we don't have to unpack it too much, but are you concerned about what's on the other side of that, with people just kind of like going, oh my gosh, or like showering you with stuff where again you'd feel like you'd have to go. Let me give you a perfect example. Perfect example for me, and this is the biggest thing that happened for me for decades. Wouldn't speak my mind about stuff that was happening, that was bothering me, upsetting me, right? And so what would end up happening is I'd keep quiet, and then things would happen either here in the home or with extended family, and then boil up. And then just one little thing that had nothing to do with what I was upset with would happen. And then I would lose it. And then people would look at me like absolutely shocked. And then I would end up going, oh, I'm so sorry. And would completely apologize, not deal with the situation, and then go right back to just buttoning up and just continuing on, and I had not addressed the issue. Instead, I saw the shock, and just like, and really what should have been happening is there were smaller little issues that I should have been addressing for a long time, that I wasn't. Then I have a blow up, and then I still don't address them, and still keep going back to the same junk.
It's a combination of that, where there is still this artificial facade that I put out there. We all do, but I'm being honest about mine at the moment, where I'm always the one who has everything together. And I worry about how others react when I don't have my act together, because I'm like, in my biological, or my adopted family side of things, I am the male head of the family now. My nieces are upset that I'm not going to be at Easter for the first time in 20 years that we've been having Easter at my sister's house. Now, I will be there. They just don't know that. I'm going to surprise them. But they're really like upset about that. And it's, just because of who I represent to them. And I'm the one they call when things go bad, when they're arguing with one of their siblings, when they're arguing with their mother. I'm the central point for that. And there's that. And it's also just the recognition in myself that there are parts of me that are now failing physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. There are parts that, and they're all interrelated. There's sure multiple causes and effects between them all. But it's admitting that I'm just not going to be doing this forever. Well, I'll be doing something forever. I just won't be doing this forever. This side of heaven. And it's that facing up to your own mortality that I've been starting to chip away at so that I'm ready for when it comes, even if it comes 10 years from now, or it could come a year from now, or 6 months from now. I don't know. And so I'm part of it is me just trying to wrestle with my own mortality on the human side. And, wondering, what it's going to be like. So there are different views of what happens after you die for a believer. There's, the view that you're asleep in Christ, and then when he returns, you wake up, and to you, it's just like seconds past. But there's also the thief at the cross, and Jesus is very specific. He's like, today you will be with me in paradise. So I'm like, I start thinking about, well, what would that be like? But if I don't know that nothing's happening, why would I be concerned? Like, if he doesn't come back for 100 years and I'm just out for 100 years, what does that matter? And there are different views of what happens. Catholics have a view, Protestants have a view, right. Evangelicals have a view. And I'm looking at the Bible, I'm like, I'm just to see where everyone gets their different viewpoints from. Like, that doesn't know. It's like, I want to know before it happens. But I'm not going to know. Yeah. And I've been reading a lot about hospice and, nurses talking about family members and what happens at the end, and some really beautiful moments.
Yes.
And wondering like what that's going to be like for me.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes.
Yeah.
And it's never before. I used to like, oh, I've got 5 years, I got 10 years, I got 20 years. Well, now it's like, well, I don't know what I've got.
Correct.
Foregoing any sort of, natural disaster or car crash or whatever happens to be. And I'm wrestling with my mortality. And I'm trying to be a buffalo and head into it, but there's no clear-cut answer.
No.
And that I'm okay with there being mystery and there being something exciting on the other side, but I just want to know.
Yeah.
It's human nature. What's next?
We're talking about this at the beginning of the call, which is, again, I've shared that, number one, I had a brief encounter with these same type of feelings that you were experiencing when I was in my 20s. When I got my diagnosis with testicular cancer and did not know what the outcome was. And one of the things that happened after that was, again, realizing like, oh, yeah, just because I'm in my 20s doesn't guarantee me anything, right?
Yeah.
There's no guarantee of what's going to happen, and suddenly facing your mortality. The other thing that we were talking about at the beginning of the call was, how I'm talking about, like, I'm having a very hard time with resting in the moment and in patience, resting in patience with God and stillness, because there's a part of me, even on Sabbaths, where I want to kind of, I know I'm supposed to be still and not doing other stuff and resting in you, but I really feel like I want to get back to my work or whatever. And I feel like that's the thing I feel like in this season, God is working with me on. Some of the stuff that seems to come out from your conversation of this stuff is I want to know. Like I want to have it like I want to have it planned out, right? Like I want to know what A, B, C, D, and E and F is going to be so that I'm ready and planned to do all that. And then we can make sure that all that stuff goes accordingly. And that's not going to happen,
Right, right.
you know?
My mind keeps going through vignettes of my past saying, okay, Doug, if you knew that in your late 50s you'd be going through this, what would you have done differently?
Mhm.
And it's not something I've been consciously trying to do. It's just like something will remind me of something from the past and like good time or bad time or just an in between mediocre time. And my brain starts going, what would you have done differently if you knew that you had until your late 50s? What would you do different? And like, okay, now's not a time for regrets. Paul's very specific. I have no regrets. And I want to be like that. But at the same time, it keeps my brain keeps going to little moments of the past. I'm like, okay, shut up. It's like there's multiple versions of myself going on in my head at the same time. And the part that's focused on the past is like starting to peek through now in ways it never has before. Because normally I'm like, today, let me worry about today and move forward to tomorrow when tomorrow happens. In the past, there's nothing I can do about. But my brain is now kind of like on high gear, mulling around all these different thoughts and emotions and like trying to then now place things in new categories. I'm a waffle and I've got new holes in my waffle that I never had before. And I'm trying to put things where I think they belong. And it's not easy. It just isn't.
No, I'm grateful for you sharing it, man. I, again, on my side of things, and I say this with other people, I wish that this is something I could take away from you, but I can't.
No, it's mine to go
It's,
through.
it's yours to go through,
Yeah.
and that I will go through it, and then everyone goes through it. And
Yeah.
part of the gift that you get, part of the gift that you get to give other people right now is saying, this is what I'm dealing with right now.
Right. Yeah.
I get
Absolutely.
these crazy, I have these thoughts that are zooming up from the past. I get to be a bad guy in a science fiction nightmare,
Oh yeah.
you know?
That one was crazy.
Like
All
I've
the dreams
got
I've had have been vivid and crazy,
mhm,
which it could be the chemo. I don't know.
could be. Yeah.
Or it could be
It
my own brain.
well, again, it's another thing to keep in mind with people that are watching or listening to this with things to hold you up specifically in prayer, right? Because,
Yeah.
you know, as we all go through our own uh, Calvary, as we all go to our own Calvary, whatever that is,
Mhm.
that the enemy, it's two things that are battling your own flesh and the enemy also trying to ride in on this as well. So you got those two things are against you,
Yeah.
you know, your own flesh, your own world stuff that's going on, and Satan also coming in and trying to whack that even more, you
Yeah.
know. So you got two things that you're fighting against at the same time. And it's not easy. And then we have the paradoxical things, which God is calling us to, or Christ is calling us to, which are, can sound so cliche and not helpful and not restful in the moment. Um, my grace is sufficient. Thanks. You know, you
Yeah.
know, please take away this thorn. Please take away this thorn. Please take away this thorn. My grace is sufficient.
Yeah.
Thank you. I,
Yeah. And the weird things my brain is focused in on an old argument I had with my dad when I was in high school. We were talking about dreams, and I was talking about the color or something. He's like, "You dream in black and white. You don't dream in color." I'm like, "I dream in color, vivid colors." And it was shocking to me to learn he only dreamt in black and white. And so that was his perspective on things. And yet my dreams were all, Wizard of Oz, bright, vivid colors a lot of
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And his was black and white, which threw me for a loop. But it's one of those weird things. It was a weird to have an argument with him that wasn't an angry argument, but it was also just one of the times I let him into my life a little bit at an early age and didn't get what I expected because I thought everyone jumped in color,
Mm. Mm.
but apparently he didn't. But he wasn't colorblind, at
Yeah.
least to my knowledge.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to try and I think that that's also a telling thing that you just talked about, which is depending on who you're going to talk to or to fellowship or to process part of this through, everybody's going through their own version, and they're not exactly in your moment with your situation with what you are dealing with specifically.
Yeah.
The big thing I used to get, which just drove me, again, people with good intentions, but when we were first getting Duncan's autism diagnosis, the amount of people, oh, he's going to be a savant. It's going to be fine. He's going to be great. It's going to be like Rain Man. He'll have a specialty in something. And I've still not to this day seen Rain Man. I haven't seen it. I've heard Dustin Hoffman is brilliant. I like Tom Cruise in movies, but F that movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Because it basically highlighted one unique sliver of autism and caused
Spectrum.
everybody to think that they knew what the outcome was going to be and to give me, cheerful words of hope.
Yeah.
And
Well,
again,
at least you don't have the doctors. I met with my oncologist today, and he's like, they keep pressing me, like, you're not getting nauseous, you're not getting sick. Like, no, it's almost like they would feel better if I start throwing up. And I'm not, and I know they understand the level of intensity of the chemo I'm going through. I understand that, but not everyone's going to respond the same way. And they even told me that, and I'm not responding the way they think I should. But it's like, to me, it's for the better. Like, I'm grateful I'm not getting nauseous every 10 minutes and throwing up.
again, it's a little, for what it's worth, Doug, it's the little miracle that you're getting to experience during this. It honestly is. It's the little miracle that you're getting, and I don't want to say little. It's the miracle that you're getting to experience during this process, which a perfect example of like the world not understanding it.
Right.
Like going, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
That doesn't make sense that you should be having that. That's not how this goes. Well, it's how it's going for me right now. That
My
doesn't
God
happen
doesn't
for,
always make sense.
yeah, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen for everyone. That doesn't happen to people.
Yeah.
I understand. It's happening for me. I'm not lying to you.
No.
They're not putting sugar water into my veins for 6 hours a day. So thank God for that. While you're getting to experience that, Peace for you, buddy. I would just say the biggest things, and again, it's something that Kate and I will focus on, and anyone else that's listening to this, just pray for peace and serenity for your thoughts right now. That's probably one of the big things. And again, God's will in this, or whatever version of surrender that looks, whatever version of surrender that has his peace that passeth all understanding in this. And that's not and none of that's a throwing in a towel, or it's basically surrendering into God's way with this, God's way and God's perfection through this, but I'm grateful that you've had the courage to just, and again, I will encourage you to whatever extent that you feel comfortable with doing this, share these thoughts, share these, so that other people hear it, and that other people, because we get so, and I'm talking about 21st century North America, everybody wants the pretty picture of it, they want the wrapped up, neat, non-ugly version, or maybe they want the other side of it too, which is that they want the, they want the complete meltdown, worst, despairing version of it too, right? It's so weird. It's like they want one way or the other, They either want to be the nice, wrapped up with a bow on top, glory to God.
I was gonna say the Disney version or the reality show version, but
yeah, right. No, right.
No.
It's kind of like they want one or the other.
Yeah.
And then they people don't know what to do with the messy, unresolved middle. It's what we deal with it's why people like story structure so much. It's why story structure has lasted, thousands of years, because people like the idea of going, what? There's a beginning, middle, and an end, right? And it's like in this, right? And it's like whenever people try to go off story structure, it doesn't go well,
right,
with audiences, because audiences want to have these moments where at least part of the uncertainty and the unknowable of life gets at least a little controlled and captured. And when it's not that, it makes people squirm in their seats a little bit.
Yeah.
So make them squirm, Doug.
I can do that. I can make them squirm.
Good stuff, buddy. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate it.
Anytime. Thank you.